We've got a lot of breaking news to discuss on this episode of the MeidasTouch Podcast. We'll talk about Katie Phang's hearing in her lawsuit against Donald Trump's Department of Justice and Todd Blanche under the Epstein Transparency Act, a federal judge threatening the Trump regime with contempt and ordering the Trump regime to produce critical documents. Great work, Katie Phang. Aaron Parnas on the front lines of incredibly powerful reporting about the horrific conditions on the USS supercarriers, the George H.W. Bush, the Abraham Lincoln, and previously the Gerald Ford. Also hat tip to Stars and Stripes, Military Times, MS Now, and others who have been doing great reporting, and to all of the military families who have been reaching out to us at the MeidasTouch Network, whether it's through Parnas or otherwise. Thank you very much for your courage. We support you. We're going to do everything we can to bring attention to those horrific conditions aboard the supercarriers. We'll talk about Donald Trump hiding in the catering box with Natalie Harp in Turkey and how pathetic he looks and how pathetic he is. And the whole world is laughing at him and mocking him right now. It is so freaking humiliating. I just want to talk about that. We'll talk about Donald Trump seeing that Caroline Leavitt is now resigning. It just so happens that at the same time that Caroline Leavitt was put in the old Air Force One, while Natalie Harp got the VIP treatment in the plane that was not going to get shot down, although now we know from our CIA that they've leaked out that this was just Netanyahu trying to get Donald Trump re-engaged in the war, which ended up working, and that the CIA never believed it was a credible threat. But Donald Trump is a pathetic coward anyway. And anyway, Caroline Leavitt has resigned. See you later. One of the worst propagandists in the history of the United States and in fascist regimes. Generally, you have Donald Trump's social media platform, Truth Social, being sued by a media company and a nonprofit for creating the Truth API, basically selling early access to Wall Street firms to get inside trading information of Donald Trump's social media posts. It was a very strong lawsuit filed under the First Amendment saying the president of the United States can't sell preferential access to his statements and his posts. It's utterly ridiculous. So we'll talk about that. State regime media Fox, with all of this going down, they want to talk about, I don't know, the WNBA or Sophie Cunningham, or I don't even know what the hell they're talking about. We've got a lot to discuss, that and more on the MeidasTouch Podcast. Brett and Jordy, great to see you both.
Great to see you too, Ben. Great to see you, Jordy. Great to see you, Mighty. You know, the midterms are approaching when everything you see on Fox are all these crazy distractions, whether they're speaking about Hassan Piker, whether they're talking about the WNBA, when they're talking about caravans and illegal immigrants, when they're talking about the transgender, they're going to make you transgender. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. We have like 90 days until the midterms. It's one way to like understand the timing of things. And also it shows honestly how scared they are for these midterms that are coming up. You know, a lot of stories to get into today. Before we get into them, I do want to shout out all of our incredible MeidasTouch Network reporters who are just doing such a incredible service right now for this community, for democracy, whether it's Scott McFarlane, his incredible reporting on how money's being diverted from the national park system to Donald Trump's pet projects at the White House, whether it's Katie Phang and her fight to get the Epstein Files released and her clash with the Department of Justice today in court. Excited to talk about that. And of course, Aaron Parnas with his incredible exclusive reporting about the USS Abraham Lincoln, which honestly cannot be talked about enough. The dire conditions these sailors are facing, the members of our Navy are facing on the USS Abraham Lincoln. It is just heartbreaking to me, and it should never, ever, ever be like this. I mean, what an absolute disgrace. It is shameful. It is horrific. Those words do not even do it justice. And we are now being flooded with comments from family members of people on the USS Abraham Lincoln who are confirming that all of this is in fact true, and even worse than what is being described right now in the public. And so we're just trying to confirm everything. Aaron's been doing an incredible job speaking to these family members of the soldiers on the ship. Just a horrifying story, and honestly just shows you the mistreatment of our troops by Donald Trump and how little he cares for them, and how it's all just a game to people like him and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio and JD Vance. What an absolute disgrace. Before we get into all that, Jordy, what's the latest?
Brothers, Midas Mighty, it is great to be here. Before I toss it to Ben, can I just ask you, the viewers right now watching on YouTube specifically, for a quick favor, 100% free to do it. If you could just hit that subscribe button to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. You might think you're subscribed, but you might not be. Some people think they are and they're actually not. Just double check, hit that subscribe button. It really helps continue to grow this channel, especially as we're on our way to 7 million subscribers. And it's totally free. Benji, where are we starting off today, big bro?
Yeah, it was a real perfect way to start this show, giving the credit where credit is due to the incredible reporters who are affiliated with the MeidasTouch Network. And for me, it's an honor just to have that affiliation and to do even a small part in trying to promote their great work, to bring them all together. And there are so many others who we could be naming, Legal AF and all of the great hosts over there, Allison Gillen, the great FOIA work she's doing to release the Epstein Files as well. This is the machine that we wanted to build here at the MeidasTouch Network, a machine that can go pound for pound against the disinformation machine of state regime media Fox. We can control the narrative and flood the zone with the truth, with accurate information, and we can fight, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on TV, whether it's in the courtroom, and to have some of the top people doing that. And I'll just show you right here the kind of contrast, right? Because as we learn more grim details about how terrible our sailors and Marines are being treated aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, the USS Gerald Ford, previously the USS George H.W. Bush. Right now, there are 2 supercarriers there that form Donald Trump's so-called blockade, right? As oil prices hit a record high for August in the history of the United States, as our deficit hits record highs, Donald Trump's like, well, we have this perfect blockade. Well, our service members are being treated horrifically aboard them. They're not getting the food they need. They're losing 30, 40, 50 pounds. The frozen food is rotting, so they're not getting all of, it's hard to get the food. They have some frozen meat that, they get small portions of. You've had, I think, at least 6 service members try to jump overboard. I think one person did. They were fortunately rescued. You have real serious mental trauma being caused to our service members. The bathrooms aren't working, moldy, rotten. It's just really, it's been described as being worse than some of the worst prison conditions that are out there, and it's horrific to see, that taking place. But we know that's happening. Like, we're in contact with the families of the service members. They're reaching out to Aaron. They're reaching out to us. They're especially reaching out to Aaron, who's doing incredible reporting. Similarly, when we report on the Trump regime's cover-up of the Epstein Files, their cover-up of the child sex trafficking ring, we're speaking with the survivors. We're grounding the story. We're rooting the story in the people who are being harmed, not in the personalities in the game. We're trying to tell the stories of what's actually happening, while you have Fox and corporate media propaganda trying to make this some game of this team versus that team, when we should all be on Team America, right? And so you have Pete Hegseth out there doing his normal propaganda shtick, his lies, his awful lies. Everything's going great. Our lethal war fighters are doing amazing. Any reporting that they're doing bad aboard these ships is utterly false and defamatory. How dare people lie? This is the information coming from the people on the ships who are talking to us and their family members. And they're not just talking to us. I mean, hat tip to the Military Times, of course, to Stars and Stripes, MS Now. Lots of others. People are being contacted by these military families also. Although I want to give a hat tip to Aaron for really being one of the people leading the way on this coverage. But first, let me show you what Hegseth said. Let's play it.
Completely misrepresented. Listen, we make sure that every ship, every crew, every captain has everything we can provide them at every single moment. Some deployments are longer than others, and I have more respect and gratitude for those sailors than anybody. What they do in those high seas and those austere conditions with less port calls, it's incredible. And Americans don't understand what it's like to do that. So as someone who's not been on a ship like that, but been on long deployments, I feel it. I want them home as soon as everybody else do. I want folks rotated as quickly as possible. I want the best for them. My commanders know that. Our service secretaries know that. The president expects that. And so to that crew and to all those crews, we're going to do everything we can.
Okay, you're not even giving them the food that they need to get the most basic nutrition. So shut up. I mean, just a real evil demon human being right there. And I mean, the way the logistics has been so utterly mismanaged, you see the trend, right? The guy, like, he couldn't run a nonprofit for veterans and got thrown out for mismanagement and other horrific allegations against him. Donald Trump has bankrupted casinos. So I think you see a pattern, right? Our strategic petroleum reserves, tank bottom, under 300 million barrels per oil. Our munitions have been depleted. Our THAADs, our Patriots, our ATACMS, our SM2s and 3s on the Navy destroyers, right? Depleted. Our MQ-9 Reapers, 25, 30% destroyed. Our bases in the Middle East now basically have to be abandoned. Major equipment has been kind of totally destroyed. And yes, we don't have the basic logistics aboard our supercarriers. It's all consistent with mismanagement. And then you have people like Hegseth, and you remember this story, who previously spent in 1 month alone $7.9 million on lobster tail in 1 month. 15, I'm not exaggerating. 7.9 million on lobster tail. That was a line item. $15.1 million on ribeye steak. $250 or $60 million on new furniture, including chairs that were each $1,900 each. That's where they were spending lots of money on. Oh, and don't even get me started on factories that they would give out these no bid contracts, in Texas and red states that got billions and billions of dollars from us, from the taxpayers, and didn't produce anything. And ended up, having factories that, I think there was one factory in Texas from General Dynamics that became a literal dumpster fire with what it was purported, like an actual dumpster fire, not a hyperbolic, like an actual dumpster fire. And then we see lots of weapons heading into Haifa today in Israel, that weapons, bulldozers, to level more areas in Palestine and in Lebanon and all these other areas. And it's like, what about first off, the most basics, give our troops the food they need, the resources like to live. And that should be a focus. But, and I think our troops, what we're hearing from a lot of family members, they don't want to be complicit in war crimes. They don't want to be complicit on ships that are sending missiles that are killing little girls in schools in Iran. And it's absolutely here. And they feel the guilt of even being associated with this war, with these war criminals. And then, healthcare, basic stuff that the American people, need, jobs, focus on the American people, education, things that are here, and not all, and like, what the hell's going on, Brett, Jordy?
And by the way, when it comes to the stories about Hegseth, the military, the Pentagon spending a lot of money on lobster and things like that, if we know that that's going to the troops and that, they're being taken care of, honestly, that's something that's completely okay with me. But when we hear stories like that, and then we hear that our troops who are deployed overseas in this very, very dangerous situation aren't getting the basic necessities taken care of, that is what really strikes at the heart of the situation for me. And also the fact that throughout this entire process, Hegseth has lied about this. We've been on the story now for what? It feels like months, right? I think it was supposed to be a 6-month deployment, and now we're like 9 months out, something around that. And we've been speaking about the conditions on the USS Abraham Lincoln. And if you recall, a couple months ago, when this was brought up to Hegseth and Trump, what did they say? Their response, the Pentagon's response, was to say they're lying. They basically called the family members of the soldiers liars. I mean, how disgraceful is that? They're lying. This is fake news, more fake news media. Everything's great. These are lethal war fighters. They're amazing. And I've even seen MAGA people who, the few remaining MAGA folks who kind of go into our comments on stories like this, and they try to downplay it too. Like they say things like, I saw comments like, "Oh yeah, there's always a few weak ones. There's always a few weak ones in the group. They'll learn to suck it up." Like, no, that's not how you treat people. That's not how you treat your soldiers who are deployed. You have to be worried as the head of the Pentagon, as the Secretary of Defense, sense. You are responsible for the day-to-day stuff. And while people are going without food or getting moldy food or in these horrific conditions, the things that Hegseth seems to care about are TV hits, working out and posting workout videos, talking about giving soldiers testosterone shots, like all just weird stuff that isn't actually helping them when they're actually in battle. He likes to talk a big game, but he doesn't even know how to play the damn game.
Exactly, B. Well said. Look, you can't just give our servicemen and women lip service. Like it's grotesque, and it's exactly what Hegseth is doing. You can't say with one breath how much you love and admire and respect our troops while you simultaneously make them live in unlivable conditions. That's MAGA, though. They are a walking contradiction. They'll wrap themselves in the American flag, Brett, just like you were alluding to, pretend to love our troops, campaign like they love our troops, but won't even give them a proper meal. They hate our troops. There's no other way to see it other than that. They will not protect our troops. And what Donald Trump and the Pete Hegseths of the world constantly do is just gaslight the American people. They tell you how much they love and respect and admire these people, all while letting them die, all while making sure that they live in unlivable conditions, while then going after the families of these brave servicemen and women that are just trying to help them, that are trying to make sure, like, hey, can they get a proper meal? They're defending our country. They should be able to actually eat. They shouldn't have to feel like they need to literally jump overboard to find more safe ground to be like living on. It's absolutely disgusting. And Hegseth's answers there are despicable. They really are.
Yeah, I'll show you the reporting with Aaron Parnas. Again, we're going to do more reporting, Aaron and I, on this. Here's what Aaron told me when I was asking him about what he's hearing from the military families. This is directly from the families who have Navy sailors and Marines aboard the ships that are currently there in the Middle East right now, with the two super carriers being the USS Abraham Lincoln and the USS George H.W. Bush. Let's play it. He comes up with the flashy name, Epic Fury. He loves the social media post, we win. But then it's like, hey, you know, how are you going to get the food? How are you going to get the mail? How are you going to get the stuff to the troops? When you abandon those bases in the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain and other areas, that was one of the areas that would route the stuff to the ships. And now, because you don't have the interceptors, Iran's able to strike there, which has these third and fourth level consequences of, well, then how do you get the food and the mail and the supplies to our troops who are out there? You can't just keep them there. And it's like, Aaron, they don't think about it. It's like they don't think about that. And they just go, if we're asked about it, it's a PR issue. Mm-hmm. No, it's a people issue. The PR issue of you lying, you could do it once, but the people are there. They ain't PR issues, it's lives.
Well, Ben, just imagine if the president wasn't Donald Trump and the president was Joe Biden. Imagine if the Secretary of Defense wasn't Pete Hegseth and it was Lloyd Austin. I mean, if you had these facts come out, just one of these stories, let alone dozens and dozens of service members experiencing the same thing. Imagine one service member tries to jump off an aircraft carrier under the Biden administration. Number one, we'd never hear the end of it. Fox News would be running it on 24/7. Jake Tapper would have written another novel. But number two, Congress would have opened up investigations by now. They would have hauled Lloyd Austin up to Capitol Hill. They would have asked military leaders to testify. James Comer would have opened up an impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden. I mean, this is as bad as you can get. This is a dereliction of duty. And I asked Governor J.B. Pritzker today whether or not he believes that Trump is essentially fit to command our troops. And he essentially says, no, he's not, right? He has mental health issues. He has possible dementia issues. And now it's a complete just mess as our service members aren't getting the necessary resources abroad. So it's bad. And unfortunately, it's not getting the coverage it deserves.
Well, the good news is that while it's not getting the coverage it deserves on Fox, if what Meidas is doing, what we've built through this decentralized network of independent media as well, is we forced it to become the biggest issue, which it should be, with Aaron leading the way and others covering it also. And now we see that people are covering it and they are being forced to cover it, because this is what should be one of the biggest issues right now, as it should also be a big issue that Donald Trump continues to cover up a child sex trafficking ring in the Epstein Files. And you have Katie Phang leading the way in a federal courthouse there, or that Donald Trump was hiding in a catering box with Natalie Harp because he was terrified that Iran was going to kill him aboard the airplane that has more defense capabilities than any plane ever anywhere. $1 billion, $2-3 billion plane, the old Air Force One, which has anti-missile capabilities, anti-drone capabilities, that Donald Trump would not want to go aboard that plane. And he had to crouch in a catering box, the commander-in-chief of the United States, because Netanyahu told him that he could be a target of some of these shoulder-fired missiles that Iran's able to have, likely because China gave them some of these. And what Netanyahu said is, you know how your F-15s got shot down? This part was true. The F-15 got shot down because Iran's able to utilize these kind of drone swarms in the air to signal to the people on the ground who have these shoulder fire missiles that seem to be provided from China, specifically where the F-15 is, and it kind of guides it. These F-15 pilots describe seeing these jellyfish, almost formations of drones in the air, and then they give the signals to the people on the ground how to shoot the F-15s. And that's what Netanyahu told them, although no one believed. Iran doesn't want to kill Donald Trump. I mean, I think Trump's afraid that they do, but Trump's killing America. Why would they want to go after? He's their best weapon against the United States and against America's alliances right now, in my view. But it actually wasn't a credible threat. Our CIA.
By the way, doesn't that make it like a million times more embarrassing? Like the story was incredibly humiliating for Donald Trump to begin with, but then learning that the CIA didn't even think it was a credible threat at all, and Donald Trump ran and did this whole stunt to hide in a catering cart in order to get away from this. And I mean, when you see his actions, there's a reason I say that, when we report on him that he's panicking, because he is panicking. I mean, when you watch him, he's golfing now with surface-to-air missiles next to him. He's switching planes and not telling the press or his press secretary or other officials that he works with that he's switching planes because he's too afraid for his life. I mean, this guy right now, he's a really pathetic individual. And of course, he doesn't care about anyone else's life. He's willing to risk their life if he thinks it's a credible threat. But the fact is that nobody took this threat seriously at all, but Trump was still running scared.
And usually people who aren't panicking don't go and hide in catering carts. That's just, maybe a rule of thumb for some. If you're not panicking, you don't go and hide out over there. I could only imagine. And I know sometimes our listeners and viewers get upset when I play our favorite game, which is imagine if Biden did it. But could you imagine if President Biden, if the CIA ultimately determined that there was no credible threat, went ahead, got off the plane, left the reporters, abandoned them on Air Force One, and went to go hide in a catering cart, basically, and fly out and pick his top 3 favorite people to take with him like it was a sinking ship, the Titanic. Because that's what this entire Trump regime, this Trump presidency, that's what this is. It's the Titanic that we're all witnessing play out in real time. Could you imagine if he did it? That $1 trillion propaganda arm at Fox News and all of that, how that would play out, the right-wing ecosystem, it would be relentless. It would be relentless. I mean, and the fact that this isn't getting enough attention, in my opinion, to me, I think is a red flag. I think more people really should be talking about how Trump abandoned all of those folks on Air Force One and basically took the life vest for him because he thought it was a credible threat. He thought his life was actually in danger. So I'm leaving. I'm out. Y'all are good there. You could be my decoys, and I'll get to shore safely.
You actually have a one-to-one comparison because when Biden traveled into a active war zone in Ukraine, people knew where he was going to be. He was aboard a train. He went through Poland. It was a 19-hour train ride that did not have Air Force One capabilities. He arrived in Ukraine at a time like now where it's constantly under attack. And he stood in an area with Zelensky that gets struck. He was there. He was outside. It's outside. And so we actually have a basis of comparison. And by the way, I understand that there may be people who are afraid to do these things. I get that there are people, but you're the commander in chief. Just think about the message that you're sending to everybody else when you do that. It shows the world that you're weak and pathetic, that you're scared, you're incapable. It's like, got it. That's Bone Spurs boy. That's the guy who claimed fake bone spurs 5 times, who believes our military suckers and losers. That's the guy who gets scared that when he sues people and you fight back, he's too scared to show up at trial. He's too scared to show up for a deposition. He's too scared to litigate and turn over his documents. He's a coward. He's been a coward his whole life. And it's sad for our country that we have a coward like that. All right, let's take our first break of the show. A reminder, check out WTF America. That's the book I wrote with my brothers. It comes out October 20th. There's a lot of momentum behind these pre-orders, but please, we need to keep the momentum up. So get your copy now. Don't wait until October. So you can Google WTF America. And you can see it's probably one of the first results that show up. It's from Hatchet. Just make sure you get the right one.
It's also in the description below.
It's also in the description. I find some people actually are easier with Google than that, but it's in the description below too. But however you want to do it, maybe that's just me. I don't know. Anyway, we'll be right back after our first. There's a QR code up here that you can scan too. All right, let's take our first break of the show.
Life insurance. We all know we need it, but we keep putting it off because we think it's complicated or expensive, or that we'll live forever. Stop telling yourself you'll handle it later and take care of it today with SelectQuote. In 15 minutes, you could have coverage that fits your life and budget. Here's what makes SelectQuote different. Their licensed insurance agents work for you, not for the insurance company. They compare options across multiple carriers to find you the right coverage at the lowest price. They've been doing this for nearly 40 years and have helped over 2 million people find coverage. Even if you have health issues, they can help. High blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease. Their agents know which carriers will give you the best rate for your specific situation. If you're healthy, they can get you the same day coverage with no medical exam. Other brokers push policies that pay them the most. SelectQuote's agents actually shop for you. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/Meidas. Go to selectquote.com/Meidas today to get started.
I've used Cash App for years, and what I like is how much you could actually do in one place. And now there are even more ways to make the money you already have work a little harder for you. Cash App could do way more than you think to make your money work for you. If you direct deposit at least $300 in paychecks each month and use the Cash App card for purchases, you can earn interest on your savings. No hidden fees, no minimum balance requirements. Also, you could hit your savings goals even faster by turning on roundups on your Cash App card. With roundups, every purchase you make using the card is rounded up to the nearest dollar, and that spare change is automatically put into your savings. So don't let your money sit around and gather dust. Make it work for you. Take advantage of interest savings on Cash App today. New Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code CASHAPP10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sudden Bank, member FDIC. Cash App Visa Debit Flex cards issued by Sudden Bank, member FDIC, and the Bancorp Bank, N.A., pursuant to license from Visa USA Inc. See terms and conditions for the Sudden Prepaid Card, Sudden Debit Flex Card, and the Bancorp Debit Flex Card. Cash App Green features, savings, direct deposit, roundups, overdraft coverage, and discounts provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures.
Let's go. Shout out to our sponsors. Links in the description of both the YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the codes. If there's an exit survey, let them know we sent you. Benji, where to next, big bro? That was a good segment. That was a really strong, if you're just tuning in now, I'd rewind and just rewind. That was a strong first segment, brothers.
Yeah, that's always great when you just applaud your own segments. That's what people love. It just we really covered a lot of good news, good timing, good pacing.
The pacing was really strong.
I think really good. Ben, your voice was strong. I want to say this too. Before we go in, I think one of the ways Fox reveals itself, because we were speaking about the distractions of Fox and this multi-billion-dollar empire that Fox has, and how they always want to talk about, right now they're talking about the WNBA and transgender this and illegal immigrant that and caravan this. And, it also ramps up at times when they want to cover for Donald Trump. And so right now, it's almost, you couldn't have more bad stories. I don't even want to say that because there are always more bad stories with this guy, and more are going to come. But whether it's the war, whether it's what's happening on the USS Abraham Lincoln, whether it's the economy, I mean, you go down the list, you name it, it's a disaster. I mean, this presidency is a complete and total disaster. Donald Trump's approval ratings are at historic lows. It's humiliating. The whole thing is humiliating and awful. And unfortunately, the American people are the ones who are suffering because of it, and quite frankly, the entire world. And so when that happens, Fox can't report on the USS Abraham Lincoln. They try to act all patriotic. They play the patriotic music. They play, they show the flag. They're behind the flag. And then they're talking about bullshit because they don't want their followers actually learning about what's going on the USS Abraham Lincoln. They want them instead to be so angry at this community or that community. And that sort of distraction strategy, to me, is worth pointing out. And it's also just so reprehensible.
Yeah. And so you have that going on with regime media, but then also on corporate media and in other areas, you have these people who just kind of show up and they pop up, the political consultant class, right?
I hate them.
Right before the election. And they start telling you about their views about elections because they represent candidates and their job is literally to make money off of elections. So they start to show up. I need my candidate to look like this. And my candidate needs to do that. And I don't want to be in a party that's this, or I don't want to. And I just say, where the hell have you been? You haven't earned the right to even give those. You haven't been in the trenches with the people right after the horrific election in November 2024. You ran away. You weren't there in 2025. You weren't there in most of 2026. It's just fascinating me to watch these people pop up with 75 days. And it's like, here I am, everybody, and here's what I want to tell you.
You know who's like the lowest of all these two, like the people who I actually absolutely cannot stand? It's the people who are like bitter, like former Democrats who haven't even worked for the Democratic Party in 20 years or something, who go on TV and decide this is my moment to get money and go on Fox and whatever. And their job is to have the title of Democratic consultant, even though they haven't been hired by a Democratic campaign in 20 years and aren't Democrats at all. And their job is to just talk shit about any sort of policies, on that side of things. And it's so transparent, what they're doing. And these people just come out of the woodworks one after the next, and you're like, ugh, it's gross.
It's also such a weird attention-seeking mentality. They didn't get enough attention. They need to make sure that their voice is heard. I can almost only describe it as the kid who would try and crack jokes in class, and no one would laugh at his jokes. They're like, Bernie's doing another stupid thing. All right, everyone just ignore him here. And now they give him his 5 minutes of fame. I genuinely don't get what this chattering class gets out of because
I'll tell you what they get. Yeah, they are. Paid. They're getting paid a lot of money. They're getting paid Jordy.
They bring on that aren't getting paid though.
Jordy. Oh, my naive Jordy. They're getting paid money, not only a little bit of money, millions and millions of dollars, not by Fox, but these people are lobbyists and they work for think tanks. And these think tanks are paid millions and millions and millions of dollars by billionaires so that these people can represent these interests, whether they're corporate interests or whatever interest you name. And they are paid to be those people. It's not about the, free guest appearance on Fox or if they get that small contract with Fox. It's not what it's about. They get paid. They make bank, these people, and they get paid to make our political discourse as toxic as possible, to divide the American people, to prop up authoritarianism and fascism. And it is frankly blood money, in my opinion. It is disgusting what these people do. It's why people hate lobbyists, but they're lobbyists that work behind the scenes and they work with, they work with politicians and they, try to get their bills passed, where they work for the NRA, or we need to get this pro-gun legislation through. And then there are the ones who show up on TV as the sort of chattering class. I mean, think about Scott Jennings. I'm not saying he, clearly, I'm not saying what I said before applies to Scott Jennings here per se, but Scott Jennings is a guy who works in this MAGA ecosystem, probably makes a lot of money in this MAGA ecosystem. And his job is to basically parrot the Trump White House line. He has a direct line to Donald Trump. He knows exactly what the messaging the White House wants out there. And then he goes on, he's put on CNN, and his job is to shout down Adam Mockler or shout down Lee McGowan or shout down who's ever on there and to get out Donald Trump's message on CNN. I mean, that's really at least a portion of the scheme there.
For the record, I knew all of that, and I was just setting you up for the alley-oop to slam dunk that for
That's
the audience to hear. So
Boom.
There's 2 points I want to bring up there. Too. People don't live in elections. People live in their lives. And so if you're not there with the people, fighting for the people, when there's not elections, when they are having this psychological torture inflicted upon them, you shouldn't expect that they're going to be there for you when you say, well, now I want you to vote just because here I am, everybody. You think about the person who just shows up in the party, who shows up late, who's supposed to show like, I'm here. And it's like, okay, except this is the bad Trump regime dystopian party. It's like, okay, where have you been? We were looking for help and now you want to come out while we've been trying to fight these fires and we've been putting it all out on the line. And then I'll say people also don't like shouting and people don't like yelling, and people just think about your dinner table or your Thanksgiving table or your whatever. And once the people start to like yell, you're like, come on, I don't want that. What are you talking about? Just stop it. So Brett and Jordy, to your point, Brett giving you the alley-oop, part of knowing that what I said, knowing that people are looking for honest, candid information, what is trying to be created by the oligarch class, by the right-wing class, is a toxicity that we all just walk away from this, and that the shouting and the yelling becomes just, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. And then who kind of fills the void? Someone who says, I can fix it. I'm going to make you a promise. I'm going to lower your electricity bills by 50%. I'm going to ensure that gas is below $2 a barrel, below $2 a gallon. I'm going to make sure that everybody can afford their homes, and we're going to make sure that groceries are cheaper than ever. Then when they finally get into power after making that pitch, because there's so much noise, then they go, I don't even know what the word affordability means. Deal with it. $4 a gallon is better than, they want to blame Biden, this and that. And, I never knew what the word affordability meant. And it's all because we needed to stop nuclear bombs, even though you claim you obliterated the nuclear weapons from Iran last year. And even though former President Obama did a JCPOA, and then they go, yes, we promised you that, but it's coming in 2027. We promised you 2027, but just you wait. 2035, you're not even going to need money. You're not even going to need a retirement. There's going to be such abundance. You'll be cool. It'll be amazing. So just the point is, and I didn't mean to sidetrack us by saying this, I want you all to watch out for the tactics, because what this fascism leads to is this coward, this thing, this gremlin, this creature, this hoarder, this taker, this predator, and Donald Trump, who's made billions of dollars screwing us all over. And he's just weak and pathetic. I mean, you see him on the tarmac and just lying about everything when we know what really went down. We know what's going on in Iran. We know what went down where he ran off from the old Air Force One on the cafeteria, the catering box. Let me just show you over here. This was done. By the way, Donald Trump really hasn't even been out there talking all that. Do you notice that he's kind of gone pretty silent since the story broke? I just think he wants to try to wait it out and do some more insane things to try to change the topic. It's why we need to focus on what's happening here. He really hasn't held press conferences lately. Here was the last time we've seen him publicly, I think. Watch him just insanely lie. Every word of this is a lie. Let's play this clip.
The country's doing well. The stock market's fantastic record. We have 79 records so far in a short period of time. More people are working right now in the United States than ever before, and prices are dropping fast. Iran is going fine, going just absolutely fine. We totally control the Strait of Hormuz. We have control over it. Nobody else, only us. Our Navy is unbelievable, and things are going great.
And then this is what he says about the Qatari Air Force One. So you remember, there was Qatari Air Force. Just think about the amount of waste, fraud, and abuse this is too. So we had 3 planes for Trump. Qatari Air Force One, the old Air Force One, and then this military plane that he ended up going in. Qatari Air Force One did not have the defensive capabilities in order to stop ballistics or drones. So Qatari Air Force One went back to the UK. Then you had old Air Force One, which is where people thought Donald Trump was that one. Then there was the military plane that Donald Trump eventually went in. But here's what he said about the here's what he said about the Qatari Air Force One. And that this was all this was about the fact that our service members in the UK, they really wanted to see Qatari Air Force One. So we were building a museum for them so that they can tour Qatari Air Force One. That's what this was all about. This is what he says. Here, play this clip.
Well, this one went over to England, where it was shown to the soldiers. No, I know, but this one went over to England because the soldiers wanted to see it, and it stopped, and they showed it to the soldiers, and we did a switch over there, and it was really as per the military, and I just have to do what they say. They go for safety, and I have to do what they say.
Why was it so dangerous for you to fly on Air Force One?
Well, I don't know. I think actually the plane that
The part he was going to say there too at the end, and I played the clip a lot, so we don't need to, repeat it again though, is he said, actually, I think the plane that I went on was more dangerous than the old Air Force One, where I had the press go. So he's like, I was protecting them because I took the more dangerous plane, let them go on the better plane because I cared about them. Dude, you were hiding in a catering box with someone who's referred to as your human printer, Natalie Harp. And the Overton window has been so shifted into this deranged fascism weirdness that we rarely, although this is all we do at the MeidasTouch Network, step back and just say, WTF, this is not normal. This is not normal behavior. This is not politics. This is not what's supposed to happen. This is real deranged, sick stuff. And we need adults. We need grown-ups. We need courageous people. We need people who care about the American people. And oftentimes what's lost from all of this are just basic discussions about leadership, about empathy, about what it means, to what the presidency means, what our Constitution is all about. And just watching, again, just the pathetic behavior, I just can't help but be like, again, like, what the F? What the F is that? What are we even watching here? And then as you learn more stories about what's Donald Trump doing today? Oh, he wanted to, now that he was banned from having the Kennedy Center be called the Trump Kennedy Center, well, now his plan was to say it's the Kennedy Center renovated by Donald Trump. And he wants it engraved into the Kennedy Center because, like a little pathetic baby, no offense to pathetic babies, he needs his name engraved in it. And now he wants to call the whole plaza the Trump Kennedy Center Plaza, so that there is now a lawsuit against the plaza because he lost the lawsuit against the Kennedy Center where he put up tarp to cover his name being removed. And now he wants to go chisel the name into the building. And folks, this guy's a freaking predator. He's a sexual predator, right? He's a bankrupter. He's a sexual predator. He's a horrible human being. And it's like, he's got the interceptors around those golden statues right now that are in, not only do they follow him around, they guard the golden statues, the bronze statues in DC. He's gilded gold with our taxpayer money. And again, with all of this going on too, you have record-setting deficits. In July, you had the biggest deficit ever in American history. The interest right now that we are paying on our debt is $1.17 trillion or $1.27 trillion right now, which is like one of the biggest line items. When we talk about the treasury yields and the bonds and these bad bond sales right now, yeah, it's because one of the reasons it's really bad is our Treasury Department has to pay interest on these notes that it's selling. And that means we, the taxpayers, are ultimately on the hook. And this just increases our debt. These are the least fiscally responsible people. It's absolutely insane, Brett.
And it's a generational problem, and it's debt that we're going to be saddled with for decades and decades and decades. And Donald Trump, he referred to himself as the king of debt. He's actually always proven that true. Trump is responsible for something like 25% of like all the debt ever accrued in the United States since the beginning of the history of the United States. Quite the achievement, Donald. And frankly, Democrats should be screaming this from the rooftops. They should be making this their issue because to me, it's not an issue of big government or or small government or whatever stupid framing they want to use. I'm so sick and tired of the media going, look at these hawks, look at these fiscal hawks out there. I mean, these people are not fiscally conservative. The Republicans are not fiscally conservative in any way, and the data bears that out 100% of the time. They're the opposite. And we even get all these other like little stories that go out there. Like there was a story today in the New York Times that the Department of Homeland Security spent $464 million. This is one of those, another no bid contract, which we're seeing many of in this Trump regime. They spent the money on 10 used airplanes, theoretically to be flying undocumented immigrants out of the country, and these have just sat idle. Like they haven't done anything. They've just been sitting there on the tarmacs, just collecting dust. And this is just another example of the government waste. Where do you see Donald Trump? Like, what was his big announcement that he made on social media today? I've made a memorandum that we're going to use steam catapults on the ships now. Steam, we're using steam. Like, this is the stuff that you're focused on, and this is the stuff that you want to be spending money on, and all these retrofitting and your planes and all this BS, while our soldiers can't even get a proper meal out to sea. I mean, the whole thing is absolutely appalling to me. And the contrast and the way that politicians are judged based on the actual things that they do to me is just like astonishing. It's just absolutely stunning. For example, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani earlier today announced that New York City is going to eliminate all the out-of-pocket childcare costs for roughly 22,000 low-income families who are receiving childcare subsidies. So they're wiping out all the copays. It's going to be completely free beginning this September. I mean, that's a big deal, right? But what do you see, when you see headlines on Fox and MAGA people are going to your comments? Oh, where is he getting this money from? Oh, this is the taxpayer money. He's happy to use your money to do this. What, your money to get kids childcare? Yeah, like, to me, that's where we should be prioritizing tax money for things just like this. And these same people who get so upset when taxpayer money is used for healthcare or childcare or helping to feed people or whatever it is, they get so angry at that. But then Trump grifts billions of dollars from the system. He moves all this money from the national parks that are to upkeep our national parks. He moves them so that he could do these pet projects in the White House. He moves them into these other ridiculous pet projects that you see him doing all over the place. He's burning money like crazy. All of a sudden, all those people go silent. That's okay. That's perfectly okay. But spend 1 penny on the American people to make their lives a little bit better. Spend 1 penny to make people who need it most have an actual healthy, successful life, give them a leg up. And that's like the worst thing imaginable to them. And then you get those attacks ramp up in the right-wing media. Oh, Mamdani, he attacked Benjamin Netanyahu. He hates Jews. That must mean he hates the Jewish people. No, actually, Benjamin Netanyahu is a very right-wing autocratic leader who is like the Trump of Israel, if not worse. That is somebody who deserves criticism and condemnation. And they just constantly are doing these distractions to try to get communities angry at somebody who's actually the first individual, one of the main kind of prominent individuals right now, who's actually using his role, his power to actually try to do good by people who are often looked over by the people in power.
It's just so important too, Brett, as you lay that out so astutely there. It's just like, we need leaders in this country that are actually going to lead, right? They're elected officials, right? They should be putting their best foot forward to help the American people. Like, start right there, period, end of story. But that when you get the Trumps of the world and the MAGAs of the world who use their positions to grift, to line their own pockets as Americans are suffering, quite frankly, it's so frustrating as it continues to play out right before your eyes. And all of those folks who are so eager to jump on Biden or jump on, any sort of Democratic leadership, or folks who are trying to actually, push the world forward in a positive way that's helpful for everyone, just go so quiet. Just go so friggin' quiet when Trump grifts, $2-3 billion off of his crypto scam? It's the craziest thing to me, how you have those people who had voted for Trump twice, 3 times, whatever, who say, I don't like his I don't like how he behaves, but hey man, I'm a fiscal conservative. No, that's a load of shit. That is a load of shit. You wanted Trump to do the ICE thing. You wanted him to start ripping rights away. You wanted Trump to be just this maniac. Like, that's what you were rooting for. You're not a fiscal whatever. you're an asshole.
And the reality
that's what
is,
it comes down to.
when I look at it, like I'll be, perfectly blunt about what I think these people think. I think they think that anyone who isn't as rich as them are lazy and that they're useless and that they don't deserve any help. And that the government should be helping the people who are already doing well because they view it as these people are contributing to society and that these people are not. So why would we give these people health care? Why would we give these people child care? And they're able to convince even people who would be helped by these things that it's bad for them. They're able to convince them of this by doing these culture war issues to say, hey, look over there. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is also to make them feel like they're actually not a part of that class, right? That they are actually speaking about those other people, those lazy people. You're actually going to do great. You're going to make a lot of money under this Trump regime. So just hold out. But these other people, these lazy people, they don't deserve any of this. We're going to rip away their Medicare and their Medicaid because they don't deserve shit. But you're going to be rich. You're going to be good. Don't worry. The golden age is coming. Everything is good. Trump's about to make you a lot of money. It's the endless scam right now and it's been going on far before Donald Trump, but it's way more obvious now than it's ever been. And I think you have to kind of realize that that's what's going on when you're watching Fox News or when you hear Donald Trump speak or any of those allies or a lot of people who are making the laws, writing the laws of this country.
It's right around the corner. Don't just you wait. Right. When they say 2025, it's like the appetizer.
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
It's the banquet. It's the this. And don't worry, it's all teed up. We were gonna do it, but then the Democrats took control. Blame. Come on, we need us. We were about to do it. We were about to save you. Then they screwed it up. They're the ones ruining it. They're the ones ruining it. Bring us back into power. Don't you see the cycle? I think people are waking up. I think people are opening up their eyes. I think people see it. And I think that's why right-wing, oligarchical power structures are very, very, very nervous right now. All right, let's take our last quick break of the show. A reminder, make sure you pre-order WTF America. It's the book I wrote with my brothers. If you're thinking, well, I'll just wait until it comes out in October, our publisher says the pre-orders are really important. So consider buying it by the pre-order right now. There's a link in the description below. There's the QR code. The book's called WTF America. It's very helpful if that book is purchased before the published date on October 20th. So pre-order it today. All right, let's take our last quick break of the show. We will be right back after this quick break.
I am super excited about Into Cloud because when you spend all day plugged into breaking news, alerts, clips, and social media, having something that helps create a little separation from all that noise can make a real difference. Into Cloud is a fully legal online cannabis dispensary with gummies, exotic flower, premium pre-rolls, zero sugar THC sodas, energy gummies, and extra strength sleep gummies. Everything is federally legal, hemp THC, lab tested, and shipped discreetly to your door. For me, their THC sodas are a great way to decompress after an information-heavy day, and the Midnight Raspberry Extra Strength Sleep Gummies help create that boundary between the news cycle and actually getting some rest. The world can keep talking, but you do not have to listen to every second. If you're 21 or older, go to indocloud.co. That's .co, not .com, and use code Meidas for 30% off your first subscription order. That's indocloud.co, code Meidas, MEIDAS, for 30% off, delivered routinely and discreetly to your door, plus free gifts and free shipping on qualifying orders. And don't forget to fill out the quick survey when you order to support this show. Enjoy responsibly, and huge thanks to IndaCloud for helping everybody stay informed without letting the feed take over the rest of the day. This episode of the MeidasTouch Podcast is brought to you by Wild Grain. Wild Grain is the first bake-from-frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, and fresh pastas. They use simple ingredients you can pronounce and a slow fermentation process that can be easier on your belly and richer in nutrients and antioxidants. Everything bakes in 25 minutes or less with no thawing required. I love having Wild Grain on hand because when things get busy, I can still have fresh, bakery-quality food without making another trip to the store. The sourdough is a favorite in my house, and the croissants are incredible. I especially love the chocolate croissants personally. Their boxes are fully customizable with variety, gluten-free, vegan, and their new protein box. Imagine having fresh bakery quality bread, pastries, and pasta at home without any trips to the store. And don't just take my word for it. They have over 40,000 five-star reviews and have been voted the best food subscription box by USA Today for 3 years in a row. For a limited time, Wild Grain is offering our listeners $30 off your first box plus free croissants for life when you go to wildgrain.com/Meidas to start your subscription today. That's $30 off your first box and free croissants for life when you visit wildgrain.com/Meidas, or you could use promo code Meidas at checkout. That's MEIDAS.
Let's go. I love the idea of partaking in some IndaCloud and then enjoying some Wild Grain. If you like those sponsors, links in description of both the YouTube and the audio. Use the links, use the code. If there's an exit survey.
That is the order to do it.
Do you guys hear this deep breathing? It's not me this time. It's really, so my doggo.
No,
Mello,
I don't hear it.
Brush up. Oh, Mello, come back. He's been sitting next to me the whole podcast, and he is just like, he must have just been running around outside right now.
You don't hear, he heard about that Wild Grain and he started salivating, you know?
Yeah. Honestly,
Stuff, man.
I was getting really concerned. I'm like, I hope people don't think it's.
I was getting hungry listening to it, so I totally get it.
Totally.
I want to just remind people when Brett was talking about Trump's steam catapult plan, like what that was all about, because just think about where we started this episode, talking about Donald Trump's horrific treatment of our sailors and Marines aboard the USS supercarriers in the Persian Gulf right now, and our troops generally, also who were previously positioned in the bases in the Middle East, who were in those containerized living areas that were repeatedly hit by Iran in response to the U.S. strikes. And then they suffered a serious traumatic brain injury, which the Trump regime categorized as minor injuries when ballistic missiles hit by their little containers that our service members were living in. But we know the horrific conditions on the supercarriers, right? So if you were a leader, right, who cared about our troops, wouldn't you come out and say, look, we hear you, it's unacceptable, I'm going to get to the bottom of it, and I want to personally make sure that we direct all of the attention that we need, and we're going to address it. Don't you think that's something that they would say? But he did make an announcement. He didn't come out publicly, but he did make an announcement that we learned about regarding these supercarriers. And Wall Street Journal got the scoop. Trump directed the Navy to tear out a complex system for launching fighter jets from its aircraft carriers and instead go back to using steam catapults, a move Navy officials have fought for years and will likely cost billions of extra dollars. U.S. officials say Trump signed a national security memorandum today directing the change, which would involve removing the electromagnetic catapult system used by the ships in the Gerald Ford class of carriers. As Senator Mark Kelly said, I've launched off the front of aircraft carriers hundreds of times, have a master's degree in aeronautical engineering, and I am a test pilot. And even I wouldn't suggest to the Navy how to engineer specific systems on its ships. Donald Trump should stick to what he knows best: ballrooms, bankruptcy, and bullshit. And, you know, those are powerful words, though, by someone who's an expert. He goes, I'm an expert in aeronautical engineering. And just because I think it's not, therefore it is. We need to understand what the needs are. It's the same thing. Trump wants to build right now a battleship, a Trump class of battleships that look like ships from the 1920s through the 1930s, but have nuclear capabilities in a current military environment where we have drone warfare, drones, drone interceptors, unmanned submersives. And once again, the United States military ran a war games exercise with Ukraine and tested our capabilities against Ukrainian drones, those FPV drones. And within a matter of minutes, Ukraine wiped out the entire United States military during these simulations right now. And the United States military had to respawn, as they call, like a video game, several times, and Ukraine would wipe it out again. And they've run these simulations and these war games numerous times. And it's like Trump is taking our taxpayer dollars. He's giving it to Netanyahu. He's building battleships, and he's wasting our money on all of these things. And we saw, you know, again, logistics also, that our ships don't have the food for our service members. They're not being taken care of. And then these interceptors, which fire 2 interceptors at a time. Iran's been developing more advanced ballistics and Shahids. Iran has studied what's going on in the United States. They recognize where the vulnerabilities are, and they launched a very sophisticated plan, knowing also that Donald Trump is stupid and that he's an idiot. And we ran through all of our interceptors, and we ran out of weapons. From 2016 to the present, we've put over $10 trillion or close to $10 trillion in military spending. We could have had universal health care. We could have had free education. We could have had affordable housing. We could have had better infrastructure. We could have had so many things. We flushed $10 trillion down the toilet for nothing, And we squandered all of this, and we are weaker than ever. You have Putin right now in an island that's claimed by Japan, claiming that this is Russian territory, threatening Japanese sovereignty. You have a MAGA leader in Japan right there. You have Taiwan running drills right now, preparing for a Chinese invasion. China's never felt more emboldened and stronger than it is right now. Remember that guy, Elbridge Colby, the number 2 at the Defense Department, who was all like, we're going to decouple from China. Now he's begging China to be allowed to visit, and they don't want to allow him to even show up. They're like, you're the guy who talked about decoupling and attacking us. All it took us was one maneuver. We didn't even play multiple chess moves. All we did was withhold rare earths for a brief second when you threatened to do a tariff war against China, and we tanked your entire stock market. Then you had to chicken out and make a deal or pretend you're making a deal. So then China agreed, you know what, we're just going to buy half the stuff we were buying under Biden. And Trump's like, yeah, 13 million metric tons of soybeans. We did it. Mission accomplished, everybody. And China's laughing. It's like, we're buying half the amount. We've diversified, and now we're buying from all the other places you were attacking, like Brazil and all these other areas. And you're acting like you did some major deal while we're not doing any of it, and we control the rare earths. So we have to pay attention to what's actually going on right here across the world. And it's one of the reasons also why I think, when you're reporting on the news the way we do, you got to be good listeners also. I mean, when it comes to our court reporting, we read through all the documents, the footnotes, but you got to be a good listener. One of the issues with this Trump regime is, and this is an issue of authoritarian in general throughout history, is they're malignant narcissists. I know everything. I know about the environment. I know about this. I don't like windmills. I like coal. I mean, everything the guy says is wrong, like quite literally. Tariffs is a beautiful word. That's what made us rich. No, it didn't. And by the way, who's getting the tariff refunds now? The corporations, $180 billion, $200 billion being refunded to corporations. That's going right to their bottom line. Inflation rose. We, the consumers, had to pay. It got passed on to consumers. Now the companies are making record windfalls, getting money from the government while they passed it on to the consumers, and they keep their prices high, by the way. But Trump's like, I love tariffs. I love coal. I hate windmills. And the stupidest stuff too. He's like, in China, they don't use windmills. It's like, yes, they do. What are you even saying? Yes, they do. They do use windmills in China. They don't do solar. Yes, they do. They do use it. And they're doing, no, they don't. Yes, they do. I mean, how am I even having a stupid debate with you? Of course, they use wind more than anybody. They use solar more than anybody. What are you talking about? But like everything he says on everything is wrong. I like battleships. Okay. Well, there's a lot of things that I like. This, you don't make decision making. I like chocolate. I don't eat chocolate every night. I mean, what are we talking about? I like catapults. Okay, you like catapults? Okay, do you know about aeronautical engineering? Do you know about any of these things? And meanwhile, you've got Iran in the war. They had these F-5s, these fighter jets from the 1970s, fly 50 feet and just drop bombs, on our bases in Kuwait. It's just one of the things fundamentally, as I watch all of this, is like and I see Trump in the little, cafeteria container box. It's like, damn, man, he's like a loser. We should never have authoritarians, but like also if we were going to have one, like, man, why is our guy such a freaking loser and so pathetic and so weak, and it's embarrassing let me be clear, I don't want any authoritarian leader. It's just like it's just like, what in the hell is even going on here? And so Anyway, I would love to know what our audience thought about my interview also with Professor Morandi, and I wanted to show a brief portion of that because I think that we have to develop an understanding of what's going on in Iran. Because Trump will be like, they're bankrupt. Everything is terrible there. They're begging us. We control Hormuz. And it's like, stop. That's not what's happening. They're going to greet us like heroes. Me and Netanyahu. No, they don't. They don't. They see the genocide in Gaza. They see you obliterating Lebanon and this mass slaughter there. They were never going to. The CIA warned you that this was not going to happen. What are you talking about? And so you listen. We need to understand what's happening in Iran. And this was a profound conversation that we had, I think, for 30 minutes. And Professor Morandi was like, look, Ben, in Iran, even right after the 12-day war in 2025, the people, were looking to the West. They were looking for, they were starting to get skeptical and were skeptical of, the government here. And they were thinking about, changing it up. And they weren't sure, what was, the direction that this country was going to go. And he's like, right now, though, the energy right now, it's like every worst fear about the United States has been confirmed by Trump's behavior. Everything and everybody now has this posture. We need nuclear weapons now because look at what's going to happen. Look, Kim Jong-un has nuclear weapons. Maybe we need to have nuclear weapons now. And so the view of resistance in Iran is so much more emboldened right now. And everybody should go back and watch the interview. Let me just show you a small portion, then I'll throw it over to you, bro.
Something that I have also experienced personally, it's anecdotal, but some of my students who previously were very critical, if not hostile, towards the Islamic Republic because they believed the Islamic Republic was unwilling to deal with the United States and to do a deal with the United States, their views changed dramatically. And another thing is that, although it's not really the number one topic nowadays, but before the 12-day war last year, I think roughly half of the Iranian population believed that Iran should have nuclear weapons. But now, and that's the state and government officials have always been saying that we do not need nuclear weapons, and they were always explaining why we do not need nuclear weapons. And yet now, according to the polls that I saw 2-3 months ago, a very strong majority believe that Iran should have nuclear weapons. So what Trump has done is that he's shifted Iranian public opinion toward, I think, a small majority believed back then that we shouldn't have nuclear weapons, but now a strong majority believes that we do need nuclear weapons. So Trump single-handedly has convinced many Iranians that Iran should develop a nuclear weapon, despite the fact that the government, the leader, political parties, for the most part, are still saying we shouldn't pursue nuclear weapons, at least for now.
Go watch the full interview. It's on our feed. I suggest you watch this. It was 30 minutes. I think it was a good discussion, Brett.
Yeah, it was a good discussion. I thought it was, enlightening. Obviously, he has, his perspective, make no mistake about it. But, everything he said there is backed up by the data. That's what the data is showing. It's that what Trump is doing has actually turned any of the people who may have been willing to support the United States in any sort of objectives or mission, or to want to at least play nice with the United States, have kind of become, radicalized, I guess you could call it, in a way, because of Donald Trump's actions. And I think, people need to understand the, kind of unintended consequences of actions, like when Donald Trump bombs schools and when Donald Trump tries to level cities and makes threats to end an entire civilization, and everything the United States does in the region. It causes a reaction to that. And that reaction is most of the time not going to be favorable to the United States. And if you're looking at this from a purely purely objective point of view, via the objectives of this war, it's been a complete and utter failure. And it's actually driven Iran now to think, well, we should do what North Korea is doing. We should be arming up. We should be increasing our nuclear capabilities, because they wouldn't have messed with us. They would have never bombed us if we had nuclear capabilities. I mean, I'm telling you, that's what they're thinking right now. And they are thinking, there were certainly people who were thinking that before, but now the percentage of people who are thinking that, it's drastically changed. And it's really all because of Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. You think bombing a little girls' school motivates Iran to look for peace? I mean, come on. The decisions that the Trump regime has made along the way, where we are now, it leads me to believe that there is no way that this war ends under Donald Trump's presidency. He is too manic of a quote unquote leader. There's absolutely no stability, nor does he have the right people in the rooms making the correct decisions other than being his yes men. So to me, obviously, in my opinion, of course, Iran's going to look to double down on their nuclear programs because of how Donald Trump has been handling this war. The guy's been a maniac. And I think there was at one point potentially opportunity for peace, but Donald Trump's decisions along the way have so domino effect this into a situation that just feels like, I don't know if we'll ever get to, like, it just genuinely feels like we will be in this war forever. And I don't know how we get out. And I especially don't know how we get out under a Donald Trump presidency.
Well, with Trump's current posture, we're not going to, because Trump can't even abide by his own memorandum of understanding, and he's not trustworthy. One of the things Trump said also when he was on the tarmac in that footage, we don't have to play the clip, but Trump was going on and on and on about how, the issue with dealing with these Iranians, the issue, they lie and they change what they want, and you don't know what they want, and they just lie to you, and they lie about what's actually going on. I wish I could say he was telling the truth, but he's the liar. Unfortunately, the president of the United States is the guy who's been lying to us about this war based on objective data that we're seeing every single day. And this is what he does with everything, right? Ben was speaking about the windmills before. Ben was speaking about how he hates windmills, so therefore windmill energy is bad and needs to be eradicated. And any country that uses windmills, they're idiots, right? They're loser countries. China doesn't use windmills when China is the top windmill producing country in the entire world. When he's speaking about battleships and I like steam, I like battleships, I like this, I like that. That's great. I don't care what you like. Let's look at what the data actually is. And, I guess my one kind of sign of hope is, we don't have control of this war because Donald Trump, unfortunately, is the commander in chief. But when you look at a topic like, windmills and clean energy and stuff, one of the things that I find interesting is that even these red states are pushing back on Donald Trump. And this is a kind of a really fascinating thing that's happening, because you see on the one hand, Donald Trump and Republicans talking a big game like, we hate clean energy, get rid of it. But then you look at one of the reddest states in the country right now, Utah. They've now, for the first time ever, generated more electricity from solar power than any other energy source during the month of May. The data just came in, and they produced nearly 1/3 of all the electricity generated in their state, edging out natural gas. Coal fell to third place. So think about Donald Trump's rhetoric and the thing, I love coal, coal's amazing, I love this. But think about what people are actually doing when they see the benefits of what actual, science tells you, what actual data tells you. And so people in Utah right now are actually using clean energy at the highest rates they ever had. They're saving money. They are actually getting more jobs because of it. A lot of people who didn't have jobs are now getting these new jobs that actually last for the future. So it's not even like a clean air issue here. It's new jobs, it's new investment, it's stronger economies. There are all these other things that we're being held back up on because of this guy's kind of stupid outlook and myopic outlook on the world, when there's actual hard data out there that actually kind of tells you in a clear-cut way what to do, how to actually chart a path forward. And that's the thing we're missing out on. But you see, when you remove Donald Trump from the equation, like in this Utah situation, when he's not touching that, all of a sudden you see even the red states are going to do what they're most incentivized to do. And in this case, in Utah, that's build solar energy. And so you see how Donald Trump right now is the barrier to so much progress. But you remove him, you get people who are actually concerned about their interests, not Donald Trump's interests. And I know that's hard in this environment. You get a much different situation.
Yeah, I want to bring up 2 quick points. I just want to give to that point just a brief legal update. number one, hat tip to Katie Phang. We did a whole hot take on it. Watch the video. Make sure you subscribe to Katie Phang's YouTube channel. The short of it is the federal judge has basically ordered the Trump regime and the Trump DOJ to to produce a redaction log and to give the timeline of when they will be producing the redaction log. The Trump regime sent in this like inexperienced person who works at the Justice Department who like took the fall for Todd Blanche. They didn't know what he was talking about. And Katie Phang's lawyers were like, all right, we want an order to be signed that basically says the redaction log is going to be produced and when it's going to be produced. So Katie Phang's lawyers get to prepare the order that compels Trump's DOJ to turn over the redaction log. So 5 million documents that are being withheld, each one by one has to be logged. Those notes regarding allegations against Donald Trump that were in those FBI 302 reports, underage girl made allegations against Donald Trump. Trump denies it. But there's an FBI 302. There were handwritten notes that the Trump DOJ didn't produce. Well, those are going to have to be produced. And then the Trump DOJ turned over a binder to try to prove why people who appear to be co-conspirators and the perpetrators are claiming to be victims. And so the judge says, I'm going to look at this, but I'm very skeptical of your claims. It's a federal judge named Judge Sullivan, who's previously not been afraid to issue contempt orders against the DOJ in connection with the case against Senator Ted Stevens. He's passed away in 2010, but there were criminal charges against this Alaska senator. The charges were eventually dismissed after he was convicted because of DOJ misconduct. And this federal judge was the judge who held the DOJ in contempt then, individual lawyers. And I'm not afraid to hold you in contempt, referring to the new lawyer for the DOJ, as well as all the DOJ lawyers that are there. So this judge is threatening to hold the DOJ in contempt and making these major orders. I think that's a really big deal, a very big development there. And what else? Oh, the other quick legal update. Other journalists, I want to give a hat tip to The Intercept and Freedom of Press group sued Truth Social, saying that it violates the Constitution, the First and Fifth Amendment, that Donald Trump is charging money for preferential access to his social media posts because it deprives journalists of the ability to report in real time on what's happening in our country while giving preferential access to Wall Street firms who want inside information to trade on Donald Trump's social media posts. Trump Media lost $270 million in the last 3 months, or for their last quarters. Their Q2 results was it's like a $270 million loss. So they have a new CEO. The new CEO is like, our big business line is going to be charging Wall Street firms $100,000 a month for access to Trump's social media posts to get preferential access. And it's per month. There were 10 firms, I think, that bought access to this to be able to trade on Donald Trump's social media posts. It's sick. But the lawsuit takes a First Amendment, Fifth Amendment angle, and I think it's a powerful lawsuit. And so other journalists stepping up and fighting, where I think we need to have these fights. So we'll be following that lawsuit, of course, as well. So I wanted to round that up and make sure I covered it. We touched all our bases. All right. Pre-order WTF America. You can pre-order it now. Google WTF America. Hatchet's our publisher. But order it right now. It's like under the Hatchet, label, but you could get it on Amazon.
Hachette.
What'd you say?
Hachette.
Hachette, is that what you say?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Hachette. Hachette. Pre-order right now. Grand Central is the other publisher. It's the main publisher is Grand Central under Hachette. Ben Breton, make sure you get us from me and my brothers. We dedicate it to you. Order it right now. The pre-orders are important. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you. We know we covered a lot, but I think we had to cover all that. Thanks for listening.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty.
The Midas Mighty standing strong against the fascists. We sing our song. We will get it right whenever.
Before you go, our book, WTF America, is available for pre-order now. It's the story of how we got here and how we fight our way back. To pre-order, scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Let's do this.